The skies above Earth crackled with the ominous hum of alien engines as the Titan Armada emerged from the void, its massive warships blotting out the sun. Humanity held its breath, their eyes fixed on the vast, imposing fleet that hovered menacingly over their homeworld. In the command centers of the major nations, military leaders scrambled to coordinate a unified defense. Seasoned admirals barked orders, their faces etched with the weight of responsibility as they deployed their finest ships and pilots to the front lines. "This is it, people," Admiral Jackson said, his gaze unwavering as he surveyed the tactical displays. "Everything we've worked for, everything we've built, it all comes down to this moment. We will not let them take our home." The human fleet, a patchwork of vessels from across the solar system, surged forward to meet the alien invaders. Sleek, nimble fighters darted between the hulking capital ships, their pilots' fingers poised on the triggers of their plasma cannons. As the two armadas clashed, the very fabric of space seemed to tremble. Brilliant flashes of light illuminated the darkness as missiles streaked across the void, slamming into the Titan Armada's shields with earth-shaking impacts. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Erickson gripped the controls of her fighter, her knuckles white, as she weaved through the chaotic maelstrom of enemy fire. Sweat beaded on her brow as she targeted a Titan Armada cruiser, her fingers dancing across the firing controls. "Come on, you bastards," she growled, her voice barely audible over the deafening roar of her engines. "Give me an opening." The Titan Armada's warships responded in kind, unleashing a withering barrage of plasma bolts and particle beams that carved deep into the human fleet's ranks. Entire ships were reduced to flaming debris, their crews lost to the unforgiving vacuum of space. But the human pilots refused to be cowed, their determination hardening in the face of adversity. They pressed the attack, weaving through the enemy fire with a level of skill and precision that belied their numerical disadvantage. Admiral Jackson watched the battle unfold, his jaw set in a grim line. He knew that the fate of Earth hung in the balance, and that every passing second brought them closer to the brink of annihilation. But he also knew that the human spirit was forged in the crucible of adversity, and that his pilots would not surrender without a fight. "Hold the line," he commanded, his voice steady and resolute. Will not let them take our home." Despite the overwhelming firepower of the Titan Armada, the human fleet fought with an unwavering tenacity that belied their numerical disadvantage. They darted between the hulking alien ships, unleashing barrages of plasma bolts and precision-guided munitions that found weak spots in the enemy's defenses. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Erickson's fighter streaked through the chaos, her eyes scanning the tactical displays with laser-like focus. She gritted her teeth as she watched another human cruiser succumb to the Titan Armada's relentless assault, its hull disintegrating in a blinding flash of light. "Damn it," she cursed, her fingers flying over the controls as she adjusted her trajectory. "We need to find a way to turn the tide, or we're all going to end up as space debris." Admiral Jackson's brow furrowed as he studied the battle unfolding before him. The human fleet was holding its own, but he knew that they couldn't sustain this level of attrition for much longer. They needed a decisive advantage, something that would tip the scales in their favor. "All ships, converge on the Titan Armada's flanks." He barked into the comm channel. "Keep them pinned down and prevent them from maneuvering. We need to find a weakness in their defenses." The human vessels responded with a renewed vigor, their pilots pushing their engines to the limit as they maneuvered into position. Plasma bolts and missile salvos rained down on the Titan Armada's exposed flanks, chipping away at their shields and causing critical systems failures. But even as the human fleet gained ground, Admiral Jackson knew that their conventional weapons were not enough to turn the tide of the battle. They needed something more, something that would shatter the Titan Armada's resolve and force them to retreat. "Order the Endeavor and the Valiant to fall back," he said, his eyes narrowing. "Tell them to prepare for a high-risk mission. We're going to hit these bastards where it hurts." Lieutenant Commander Erickson's eyes widened as she received the orders, her heart racing with a mix of fear and anticipation. She knew that the mission Admiral Jackson had in mind was nothing short of suicidal, but she also knew that it might be their only chance to survive. "Endeavor and Valiant, you're with me," she said, her voice steady and resolute. "We're going to show these aliens just how resilient the human spirit can be." The two ships peeled away from the main formation, their engines roaring as they hurtled towards the heart of the Titan Armada. Erickson gripped the controls of her fighter, her jaw set in a determined line, as she prepared to deliver the payload that could turn the tide of the battle. The human fighter squadron, led by Lieutenant Commander Erickson, sliced through the Titan Armada's defenses, evading enemy fire and navigating the maze of hostile vessels. They pressed on, their sights set on the command ship at the center of the alien formation. Erickson's heart pounded in her chest as she maneuvered her fighter through the chaotic barrage of plasma bolts and particle beams. Her wingmen followed closely, their ships weaving and diving in perfect synchronization. "We're almost there," Erickson said, her voice calm and steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Keep your heads down and your weapons hot. We can't afford to mess this up." As the squadron approached the Titan Armada's flagship, the alien gunners shifted their focus, unleashing a withering hail of fire that threatened to tear the human ships apart. Erickson gritted her teeth, her grip tightening on the controls as she pushed her fighter to its limits. "Now," she shouted, and the squadron's payload of antimatter bombs was launched, the deadly warheads streaking towards the Titan Armada's command ship. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as the bombs closed in on their target. Erickson held her breath, her eyes fixed on the growing fireball that suddenly bloomed in the heart of the alien formation. The detonations were blinding, the shockwaves rippling through the void and buffeting the human ships as they fought to maintain control. Erickson felt the G-forces pressing against her body, her vision darkening at the edges as she struggled to keep her fighter from being torn apart. In the aftermath of the antimatter explosions, chaos reigned supreme. The Titan Armada's flagship had been reduced to a smoldering hulk, its once formidable shields shattered by the devastating payload. Surrounding vessels, their systems crippled by the shockwaves, drifted helplessly in the void. Admiral Jackson's eyes widened as he witnessed the devastation wrought by the human squadron's daring assault. He had known the risks, but the potential rewards had been too great to ignore. All ships pressed the attack. He bellowed into the comm channel. "This is our chance to turn the tide." The human fleet surged forward, their pilots emboldened by the successful strike against the Titan Armada's command ship. Plasma bolts and missiles rained down on the disorganized alien vessels, exploiting the gaps in their defenses. Erickson's fighter weaved through the chaos, her fingers dancing across the firing controls as she targeted the enemy ships with precision. She felt a surge of pride and determination coursing through her veins, knowing that their daring gambit had paid off. "This is for our home," she murmured, her eyes narrowing as she unleashed another barrage of plasma bolts. "We will not be conquered." Reeling from the devastating blow to their command structure, the Titan Armada's formation began to crumble. Human ships, emboldened by the selfless actions of the fighter squadron, pressed their advantage, unleashing a relentless assault on the disorganized alien vessels. Lieutenant Commander Erickson's fighter streaked through the chaos, her eyes scanning the tactical displays as she coordinated the human fleet's offensive. She could see the panic and confusion spreading through the Titan Armada's ranks, their once formidable coordination giving way to a chaotic retreat. "Keep the pressure on." Erickson barked into the comm channel, her voice laced with a fierce determination. "Don't let them regroup." The human ships responded with a renewed vigor, their pilots pushing their engines to the limit as they sought to capitalize on the Titan Armada's disarray. Plasma torpedoes and precision-guided missiles rained down on the enemy vessels, slowly but surely whittling away their numbers. Admiral Jackson watched the tide of the battle shift, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his lips. He had known that the antimatter strike was a risky gambit, but he had also recognized the potential to turn the tide of the conflict. "All ships converge on the Titan Armada's flanks," he ordered, his voice cutting through the static of the comm channel. "Cut off their avenues of retreat and trapped them in a crossfire. The human fleet responded without hesitation, their ships maneuvering into position with a level of coordination that belied their disparate origins. Ericsson's fighter sliced through the enemy formation, her cannons blazing as she provided cover for the larger capital ships. "We've got them on the run," she shouted, her heart pounding with exhilaration. "Keep it up, people. This is our chance to end this once and for all." The Titan Armada's commanders, their once formidable fleet now in disarray, were forced to make a desperate decision. They ordered their remaining ships to make a final, suicidal charge towards the human fleet, hoping to inflict as much damage as possible before their inevitable defeat. Ericsson's eyes widened as the alien vessels hurtled towards them, their hulls bristling with weapons. She gripped the controls of her fighter, her muscles tense as she prepared to meet the onslaught head-on. "All ships, brace for impact," she yelled, her voice cutting through the cacophony of the battle. "This is it, people. Show them what we're made of." The human fleet surged forward to meet the Titan Armada's desperate charge, their plasma cannons and missile batteries unleashing a withering barrage of fire. The sky above Earth erupted in a blinding display of light and sound, as the two forces collided in a fiery clash that would determine the fate of the human race. Trapped and outmatched, the Titan Armada's commanders were forced to make a desperate decision. They knew that their once formidable fleet was on the brink of collapse, their ships crippled by the humans' relentless assault. With no other options left, the alien leaders ordered their remaining vessels to make a final suicidal charge towards the human fleet, hoping to inflict as much damage as possible before their inevitable defeat. Lieutenant Commander Ericsson gritted her teeth as she watched the Titan Armada's ships hurtling towards them, their weapons blazing with a fury born of desperation. She knew that this was the moment of truth, the make-or-break point that would determine the fate of their world. "All ships, prepare for impact," she barked into the comm channel, her voice laced with a determination that bordered on defiance. "We cannot. Will not falter now." The human pilots, their ranks thinned but their spirit unbroken, met the alien onslaught head-on. They maneuvered their ships through the chaotic maelstrom of enemy fire, their fingers dancing across the firing controls as they unleashed devastating strikes against the Titan Armada's vulnerable areas. Ericsson's fighter darted between the hulking alien vessels, her cannons blazing with a fury that belied her slender frame. She weaved through the hail of plasma bolts and particle beams, her eyes narrowed with a focus that bordered on obsession. "Come on, you bastards," she growled, her voice barely audible over the roar of her engines. "Give me everything you've got." Admiral Jackson watched the battle unfold from the command center, his jaw set in a grim line. He knew that the fate of Earth hung in the balance, and that every passing second brought them closer to the brink of annihilation. "Hold the line," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We cannot. Will not let them take our home." The human ships responded with a renewed vigor, their pilots drawing upon reserves of strength and courage that they didn't know they possessed. They fought with a ferocity that defied all logic, their weapons precision-guided, and their maneuvers executed with a level of skill that seemed almost superhuman. As the alien vessels were methodically destroyed one by one, the human commanders realized that they were witnessing the twilight of the Titan Armada. The once formidable alien force was now little more than a shadow of its former self, its ambitions of conquest shattered by the indomitable will of humanity. Ericsson's fighter streaked through the debris-strewn battlefield, her eyes scanning the tactical displays with a mixture of relief and pride. They had done it. They had proven that the human spirit could not be broken, no matter the odds. "This is for our home," she whispered, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "We've won." In the wake of the historic battle, the human fleet emerged victorious, its battered but resolute ships returning to Earth in triumph. The news of their triumph spread like wildfire, igniting a wave of patriotism and national pride across the human colonies. Lieutenant Commander Ericsson's fighter touched down amidst a sea of cheering crowds, her fellow pilots disembarking to a hero's welcome. She stood tall, her uniform disheveled, and her face etched with the strain of the battle. Yet her eyes shone with a newfound sense of purpose. "We did it," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the roar of the crowd. "We showed them that the human spirit cannot be broken." Admiral Jackson watched the celebrations from the command center, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his lips. He had known that the battle would be a pivotal moment in the history of humanity, but even he had been unprepared for the outpouring of emotion and unity that followed their victory. "The leaders of the world," he said, his voice carrying a weight of responsibility. "They need to see this. They need to understand that our differences pale in comparison to the challenges we face out there." The world's leaders, once divided by petty differences, now stood united in the wake of the Titan Armada's defeat. They recognized the power of their collective resolve, and they pledged to channel their resources into rebuilding the damaged cities and supporting the families of the fallen heroes. Across the human colonies, the people celebrated the victory with a fervor that knew no bounds. They gathered in the streets, waving flags and chanting the names of the brave pilots who had risked everything to defend their homeworld. But amidst the jubilation, there was also a sense of sobriety, a recognition that the battle had come at a heavy price. Countless lives had been lost, and the scars of the conflict would be felt for generations to come. Admiral Jackson knew that the work was far from over. He convened the leaders of the world, their faces etched with a mixture of pride and trepidation, and laid out his vision for the future. "This victory is only the beginning," he said, his gaze unwavering. "We have proven that we can stand united in the face of adversity, but we cannot rest on our laurels. The Titan Armada's defeat is merely a prelude to a larger conflict, one that will test the limits of our ingenuity and resilience." The leaders listened, their expressions thoughtful, and their resolve hardening. They understood that the challenges ahead would be formidable, but they also knew that they had the power of a united humanity behind them. "We will be ready," the President of the United States said, her voice firm and unyielding. "And when the time comes, we will show the galaxy that the human race is a force to be reckoned with." In the years that followed the defeat of the Titan Armada, the human colonies underwent a remarkable transformation. The technologies developed during the battle were now being applied to improve the lives of the people, ushering in a new era of prosperity and scientific advancement. Lieutenant Commander Erickson had retired from active duty, her days of piloting a fighter behind her. But the spark of determination that had once driven her in the heat of battle still burned brightly within her. She had taken on a new role, overseeing the development of the next generation of spacecraft and weapon systems. "We can't rest on our laurels," she said, her gaze fixed on the holographic schematics before her. "The Titan Armada's defeat was just the first step. We need to be ready for whatever else the galaxy has in store for us." The once disparate human nations had become a formidable interstellar power, their fleets patrolling the vast reaches of space and forging alliances with other civilizations. The Titan Armada's defeat had not only secured the safety of Earth, but had also elevated humanity's standing in the galactic community. Admiral Jackson, now retired from active duty, watched the transformation with a sense of pride and trepidation. He knew that the challenges they had faced were only the beginning, and that the human race would need to continue to adapt and evolve if they were to survive in the harsh realities of the cosmos. "We've come a long way," he said, his gaze sweeping over the bustling spaceport. "But we can't afford to let our guard down. There are still threats out there, and we need to be ready to face them head-on." The human colonies had become a hub of technological innovation, with scientists and engineers working tirelessly to push the boundaries of what was possible. New propulsion systems, advanced shielding technologies, and powerful energy weapons were all being developed to bolster the human fleet's capabilities. But even as the colonies prospered, the human leaders knew that their work was far from over. They understood that the Titan Armada's defeat was merely a prelude to a larger conflict, one that would test the limits of human ingenuity and resilience. "We've tasted the sweet fruits of victory," the President of the United States said, her voice ringing with a newfound confidence. But we can't afford to become complacent. The galaxy is a vast and treacherous place, and we need to be prepared to face whatever challenges come our way. As the human fleets continued to patrol the stars, forging alliances and exploring new frontiers, the people of Earth were filled with a sense of optimism and determination. They knew that the battle against the Titan Armada had been a pivotal moment in their history, and that the future held countless more challenges and opportunities for them to overcome. "We are the masters of our own destiny," Erickson said, her eyes shining with a fierce determination. "And we will not be cowed, not by any alien threat or cosmic force. The human race is destined for greatness, and we will prove it to the galaxy, one victory at a time." As the years passed, the human colonies continued to expand, their technological prowess and military might growing with each passing decade. They had become a force to be reckoned with in the galactic community, forging alliances and trading with other civilizations. Lieutenant Commander Erickson, now a seasoned veteran, oversaw the development of the latest generation of spacecraft and weapons systems. Her keen eye for innovation and her unwavering dedication to the protection of her homeworld had made her an indispensable asset to the human fleet. "We can't afford to rest on our laurels," she said, her gaze sweeping over the schematics of the newest plasma cannon prototype. The Titan Armada's defeat was just the first step in a much larger conflict. We need to be ready for whatever the galaxy has in store for us. Admiral Jackson, now a respected elder statesman, watched the unfolding of humanity's galactic ascension with a mix of pride and trepidation. He knew that the challenges they had faced were only the beginning, and that the human race would need to continue to adapt and evolve if they were to survive in the harsh realities of the cosmos. "We've come a long way," he said, his voice carrying a weight of experience. "But we can't afford to let our guard down. There are still threats out there, and we need to be ready to face them head-on." The human colonies had become a hub of technological innovation, with scientists and engineers working tirelessly to push the boundaries of what was possible. New propulsion systems, advanced shielding technologies, and powerful energy weapons were all being developed to bolster the human fleet's capabilities. But even as the colonies prospered, the human leaders never forgot the lessons of the Titan Armada's defeat. They knew that complacency could be their downfall, and they remained vigilant, always on the lookout for new threats. And when those threats did emerge, the human fleets were ready, their ships bristling with the latest weaponry, and their crews filled with the same indomitable spirit that had carried them to victory in the past. "We will not be conquered," Erickson said, her voice laced with a fierce determination. "We are the masters of our own destiny, and we will shape the course of the galaxy with our own hands." As humanity's influence and power grew, so too did their ambitions. They began to dream of a future where the human race would not merely survive, but thrive, taking its rightful place as a leader among the stars. The human colonies forged new alliances, trading technologies and resources with other civilizations. They explored the furthest reaches of the galaxy, seeking out new worlds and new opportunities. And with each new challenge they faced, the human race grew stronger, more resilient, and more determined to shape their own destiny. "The sky is no longer the limit," the President of the United States proclaimed, her voice ringing with a sense of boundless optimism. "We are destined for greatness, and we will not be stopped by any force in the universe." As the human fleets continued to patrol the stars, their ships cutting through the void with a sense of purpose and resolve, the people of Earth looked to the future with a renewed sense of hope and determination. For they knew that the human race had proven itself to be a force to be reckoned with, a civilization that refused to be subjugated or cowed. And as they looked to the stars, they knew that the journey had only just begun.